The sound of the final bell echoed down the gleaming white hallways of Westdale High, but for Tyler Brooks, it didn't mean freedom. It meant a storm was coming. He clutched his backpack tight, eyes darting toward the principal's office at the end of the corridor like it was the lion's den. His fingers trembled. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was sure of it. But when you're the son of a construction worker in a school full of senators' kids and tech CEOs' daughters, wrong can look a lot like poor. Inside the office, the air was stiff, like the walls were holding their breath. Principal Carlton sat behind his polished oak desk, hands steepled, expression unreadable. His tie was tighter than it needed to be, like his self-righteousness was choking him. "Sit, Tyler," he said, not looking up from the folder in front of him. Tyler obeyed. Carlton finally raised his eyes. They weren't angry. They were disappointed. And somehow, that was worse. "Do you know why you're here?" "No, sir," Tyler replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Carlton slid a small plastic bag across the desk. Inside, a cracked tablet with a shattered screen and a mess of wires hanging out of it. "This was found behind the school's server room this morning. Tampered with. Fried." Tyler blinked. "That's not mine. But your fingerprints are on it." That's because I picked it up yesterday. I saw it in the hallway and..." Carlton cut him off. "Tyler, we've had enough issues this year. Vandalism. Insubordination. And now this? I swear I didn't." Carlton's hand slammed the desk, silencing him. "I've seen this pattern before. You feel out of place, you lash out. But this is a private institution, not a playground. We maintain order here." Tyler's heart thudded in his chest like a warning drum. "Please. Just talk to Mr. Green. He saw me after school. I wasn't even near the server room." Carlton didn't budge. "We don't tolerate sabotage, Tyler. You're being suspended until further notice. Possibly expelled." Expelled. The word hit harder than any punch. It felt final. Like a door slamming shut on everything he'd been fighting to prove. He stood up slowly, legs wobbly beneath him. "Does my mom know?" "We've called her." Tyler didn't wait for more. He grabbed his bag and pushed through the door, his vision swimming. The hallway outside wasn't empty anymore. A few students lingered, and word had already started to spread. Eyes followed him. Whispers chased his steps. "Is that the kid they kicked out? Didn't his dad die on a construction site or something? Figures. Those types always end up like this." Tyler clenched his fists. He wanted to scream. He wanted to run. But he just walked. One foot in front of the other. Out the front doors. Into the cold. Outside, his mom's old Toyota Corolla was already parked at the curb. Linda Brooks sat behind the wheel, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, jaw tight. She didn't look at him as he got in. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, what happened? He told her. Every detail. His voice cracked somewhere between, "I didn't do it," and, "He didn't even listen." Linda sighed. Not out of disbelief, but exhaustion. Of course he didn't listen. Tyler turned to her, eyes wide. "You believe me?" She looked at him then. Really looked. "Of course I do. You're my son." Those words should have comforted him. But all he could think was, being your son might not be enough. That night, Tyler sat on the floor of his room, surrounded by pieces of the RC drone he'd been building from spare parts. He stared at it, but his hands didn't move. His brain couldn't focus. He pulled out his sketchbook instead. Flipped past the designs of drones, engines, and gliders until he reached the last page. There, tucked into the binding, was a photo. His dad. In a hard hat. Smiling like he owned the sky. Under the photo, in his dad's messy handwriting. When life kicks you down, build something that flies. Tyler stared at it until his eyes blurred. And then, something inside him shifted. Somewhere in the city, across town and far from the noise of high school halls and cheap assumptions, an elderly man sat by a fireplace in a room lined with aviation models and walnut shelves. His name was Alexander Brooks. A name that turned heads on Wall Street. A name stamped on fighter jets and luxury helicopters alike. But his eyes were on a worn leather envelope. It had arrived that morning. Postmarked from a city he hadn't visited in 20 years. Inside, a letter. From a boy he'd never met. His grandson. It wasn't until the next morning, after the school's halls had quieted without him, that Tyler truly felt the weight of it. He was no longer a student at Westdale High. That name, that identity, that daily rhythm, gone. And all because someone decided a poor kid didn't belong. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The house was silent, too. His mom had already left for her shift at the diner, leaving behind a note on the fridge in her usual messy scrawl. Breakfast on the stove. Love you more than the moon. He barely touched the eggs. He didn't feel hungry. He didn't feel much of anything, except maybe invisible. Tyler wandered into the garage, the only place in the house that truly felt like his. It smelled like motor oil and wood glue, the floor stained with solder marks and tangled extension cords. A stack of old radio parts leaned dangerously near a corner, and on a dusty workbench sat his pride and joy, the remains of a quadcopter drone he'd been building for 6 months. This little room was where he escaped when the world didn't understand him. When the teachers thought he wasn't paying attention, because he'd finish assignments early and sketch blueprints in the margins. When classmates mocked the way he dressed or the way he talked, because their parents vacationed in the Alps and his mom shopped clearance aisles at Target. He picked up the remote control he'd built from scratch and turned it over in his hands. A switch was cracked, but fixable. Everything was fixable, except the way people saw him. Tyler's story didn't start with Westdale. It started in a one-bedroom apartment in East Briar, where he and his mom had lived since before he could remember. The couch was second-hand. The stove had a burner that never lit. But Linda Brooks made it home. His father, Derek, had been the kind of man who could charm an entire room with a grin and a good story. He worked hard, construction mostly, though he always dreamed bigger. He'd been teaching Tyler about engines and lift mechanics before the boy could even spell aerodynamics. "Wanna know why birds never get lost, buddy?" he'd ask. "Because they've got wings." Tyler would guess. "Nope," Derek would wink. "Because they trust the wind." But then, when Tyler was 7, the wind turned. A scaffold collapsed on a rainy site. Safety codes had been ignored. The news report blamed freak weather. But Linda always said it was greed, and she never forgave the company that walked away with nothing more than a fine. Tyler didn't understand grief at the time. Just that his mother cried when she thought he wasn't looking. And that the world suddenly felt colder without his father's laughter bouncing through it. They never really talked about his dad's family. All Tyler knew was that there was a family on that side, somewhere. Wealthy. Important. Distant. His mom refused to speak their name. "I married your father," she'd say, "not his money." But late one night, while digging through an old box of her husband's keepsakes, Tyler had found something. A photo, yellowed at the edges, of a man in a pilot's uniform, standing in front of a sleek black helicopter. Scrawled on the back, Alexander Brooks, 1983. And next to it, a letter. Unsent. "Dad. I know we haven't spoken since I married Linda. I get it, you didn't approve. But I'm writing because you have a grandson now. His name's Tyler. He's brilliant. Got your eyes and my curiosity. Maybe one day, maybe you'll want to meet him. The letter was dated 3 months before Derek died. It had never left the envelope. Tyler had read it 100 times. He never told his mom he found it. Back in the garage, Tyler sat on a milk crate and stared at the drone. Wires spilled from its open frame like veins. His fingers itched to start fixing it, but his mind kept drifting. Would his life have been different if that letter had been sent? What kind of man was Alexander Brooks? And what did it mean to have a name like that in a world like this? Tyler pulled out his sketchpad from under the workbench. Not the school one, the real one. The one filled with designs that only made sense in his head: solar-powered kites, voice-activated hoverboards, drones that could map earthquake zones. He flipped to a blank page and started drawing a new design. Not a machine this time. A bridge. Between two worlds. Between who he was, and who he might become. That afternoon, as the sun dropped below the rooftops of East Briar, Linda came home, bone-tired but smiling the moment she saw her son. "How you holding up?" she asked, pressing a kiss to his temple. "I'm fine," he lied. She didn't push. She never did when he needed space. Just ruffled his hair and handed him a steaming bowl of mac and cheese, the good kind, with breadcrumbs on top. As they ate on the couch, Tyler turned to her. "Do you ever think about Dad's family?" Her expression stiffened instantly. "Not really," she said. "They made their choice. What if I wanted to meet them?" Linda looked at him then, really looked. Her eyes held a flicker of pain, and something else. Fear. "They don't want us in their world, Ty. Trust me on that." "But what if it's not about them wanting us? What if it's about me wanting answers?" She didn't reply. Just sighed and got up to do the dishes. Tyler sat there, eyes fixed on the flickering TV screen, his mind already spinning. That night, he pulled out the unsent letter. Again. He copied it, word for word. Then added a few lines of his own. "Dear Mr. Brooks. I know you don't know me, but I'm your grandson. I'm not writing for money or anything. I just want to know where I come from. I want to know if there's anything of my dad in you, or in me. If you ever want to meet me, I'll be here. Waiting. Tyler." He folded it carefully. Sealed it. And addressed it to a name he'd only dared whisper. Alexander Brooks. Brooks Aviation Headquarters. Denver, Colorado. As he slipped it into the mailbox the next morning, he didn't know what he hoped for. But he knew this much. He was done waiting for the world to make space for him. He'd build his own runway. The morning sun crept through floor-to-ceiling windows, spilling golden light across marble floors and mahogany bookshelves. In the center of the room, surrounded by aviation trophies and vintage model planes, Alexander Brooks stood like a monument, tall, composed, and utterly still. The envelope rested in his hand. His name, typed in plain, careful letters on the front, was enough to make his heart skip, just once. He recognized the handwriting from the original letter, the one his son had never sent but he had secretly obtained years ago, forwarded to him by a private investigator. That letter had stayed in a drawer for over a decade. He'd read it only once. Until now. This envelope felt different. Newer. Younger. From Tyler. His grandson. Alexander moved slowly to the leather chair near the fireplace, his body betraying none of the tension in his mind. He slit the envelope with a brass opener shaped like a jet wing and unfolded the note. The first thing he noticed was the penmanship, tight, neat, with slight smudges where a left-handed boy might have dragged his wrist across the ink. But it wasn't the writing that caught his breath. It was the words. "Dear Mr. Brooks. I know you don't know me, but I'm your grandson. I'm not writing for money or anything. I just want to know where I come from. I want to know if there's anything of my dad in you, or in me. If you ever want to meet me, I'll be here. Waiting. Tyler. The fireplace crackled. Alexander sat for a long time, the letter resting in his lap. His eyes, once steely and commanding, softened with memory. It had been 16 years since Derek Brooks had walked out of this very estate. No one had slammed a door. No dramatic fight. Just silence, and a line drawn in the sand. "You can't marry that woman," Alexander had said, his voice colder than jet steel. "She's not just that woman. She's my family now," Derek replied. "She'll drag you down. I built this empire with my bare hands, and you want to throw it away on love?" Derek's jaw clenched. "I don't need your money, Dad. I never did." That was the last time they'd spoken. Alexander had expected him to come back. They always came back, the ones who left the Brooks name behind. But Derek hadn't. He died instead. A senseless accident. A construction site. Alexander had read it in the papers and dismissed it as poetic justice, until guilt slowly wormed its way through the armor of pride. Now, a boy, his grandson, had written from that same broken lineage, extending something he'd never expected. A chance. Later that afternoon, Alexander stood in front of the towering windows of Brooks Aviation HQ, watching the tarmac bustle with technicians and test pilots. The sky was his kingdom, a kingdom he had built from scratch after leaving the military. Fighter pilot turned entrepreneur. Commander turned CEO. No family. No son. Just legacy. Until now. He turned to his assistant, James Whitman, who stood nearby with an iPad in hand, trying to look invisible. "Find him," Alexander said without turning around. "Sir." "The boy. Tyler. Find out everything. Where he lives. His mother. His school. I want full details within the hour." James hesitated. "Do you want to reach out formally? A lawyer? Or perhaps—" "No," Alexander interrupted. "Not a statement. Not a public gesture. Just, find him. Quietly." "Yes, sir." As James left, Alexander's gaze returned to the sky, his voice low and unfamiliar even to himself. "I owe him that much." Across town in East Briar, Tyler sat on the rooftop of his apartment complex, legs dangling over the ledge, notebook in hand. The mailbox had already been emptied. His letter was gone. Now, the waiting began. He stared up at the sky, half hoping to see a sign. A plane. A helicopter. Anything. But the sky, like always, stayed silent. He flipped to the next page in his sketchbook, where he'd started redesigning the drone from scratch. This time, it wouldn't just fly. It would record. Stream. Send images in real time. He called it the messenger. If no one was going to listen to him, he'd make something that demanded attention. Behind him, the rooftop door creaked open. Linda stepped out, holding 2 cups of hot cocoa. She handed him one, then sat beside him. "You've been up here a lot lately," she said. "It's quiet." She sipped her cocoa. "You used to come up here with your dad. You'd both just stare at the sky like it was telling you secrets." "It kind of does," Tyler said, eyes still upward. "It's honest. You can't fake gravity." Linda gave a small laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. There was a silence between them that felt old. Heavy. Unspoken. Then Tyler finally asked, "Why did Dad leave his family behind?" Linda froze. The mug in her hands trembled. "I mean, what were they like?" he pressed. "Were they bad people? Did they hurt him?" She looked down. "No. Not like that. Just, different. Cold. Controlling. His dad, your grandfather, he couldn't accept our life. He thought we weren't enough. Maybe he changed, Tyler said softly. Linda looked at him, eyes suddenly sharp. Don't go looking for a man who left your father to die without a word. We don't need them. But what if I need answers? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood and walked back to the door, pausing before going inside. Don't lose yourself looking for someone who never looked for you. The door closed with a soft click. Tyler looked down at his notebook. In the corner of the page, he scribbled 3 words in all caps. Find the truth. That evening, across a secured server in Denver, a file opened on James Whitman's screen. Data streamed in. Name, Tyler Derek Brooks. Age, 14. School, formerly Westdale High, currently suspended. GPA, 4.0. Extracurriculars, Robotics Club, disbanded, Science Olympiad, Volunteer STEM Program. Father, Derek Brooks, deceased. Mother, Linda Morgan Brooks, waitress, single mother. Residence, East Briar Apartments, Unit 5C. Attached, a photo. Tyler, at a science fair, holding a first-place trophy with a lopsided grin. James stared at the image for a long moment, then turned his laptop toward Alexander. The old man leaned forward. And for the first time in over a decade, he smiled. Westdale High didn't need announcements to spread news. It had something far faster than the school PA system, group chats, hallway whispers, and the notorious T-Spill Instagram page run by an anonymous junior with too much time and too little mercy. By Monday morning, Tyler Brooks wasn't just the kid who got expelled, he was the hacker who almost crashed the school's entire server. Or at least, that's what the comments said. Bro really tried to take down Westdale like it was the Matrix. Guess scholarship kids aren't built for elite systems. Wait, wasn't his dad that construction guy who died? Yikes. Family drama much? Heard he's related to someone famous. Like big money. Maybe that's why he snapped. That last comment was new. And it was gaining likes fast. Back in East Briar, Tyler had no idea he was trending. He spent most of the morning on the roof again, soldering wires and mounting a microcamera onto his newly rebuilt drone. He called it Messenger Mk2. Stronger frame. Better lift. And now, it could fly up to 2 miles and stream video directly to his phone. It was his way of staying in control, when everything else felt like chaos. He kept waiting for something. A call. A letter. A visit. Anything. Instead, silence. Even the mailbox stayed empty. At Westdale, Principal Carlton was on edge. The news about Tyler had spread faster than he anticipated. It wasn't just the hacking accusation anymore, it was why the school had acted so quickly. Because apparently, Tyler Brooks might be connected to Alexander Brooks, the billionaire aviation mogul. The whispers reached Carlton's office through one of the junior counselors, who overheard it in the library. Carlton nearly choked on his coffee. No. Absolutely not, he muttered, pacing. No way that kid's a Brooks. If he were, we would have known. Someone that powerful doesn't hide a grandson. Still, he wasn't stupid. Power changes perception. And if he'd just expelled the heir to a billion-dollar legacy. He reached for the phone. Meanwhile, Tyler was in his room rewatching footage from the drone's first successful flight when the screen suddenly froze, and then flickered. A brief signal interference. Not unusual for a homemade rig. But then, something odd. The feed resumed, and in the distance, over the apartment rooftops, a dark helicopter hovered, steady and silent. Tyler sat up straight. He zoomed in. Black body. Silver trim. The emblem on the tail wasn't military or medical, it was custom. And familiar. He dug through his drawer, pulled out the old photo of Alexander Brooks in front of a similar aircraft. Holy crap. He dropped the drone controller and ran to the window. But by the time he got there, the sky was empty. Elsewhere in the city, inside a sleek black SUV, James Whitman spoke softly into a Bluetooth headset. "Yes, sir. The test flight was completed." The boy saw the aircraft. A pause. No contact. Just, letting him know someone's watching. Keeping things controlled. Another pause. He looks like him. A little stubborn, maybe. But sharp. Focused. The voice on the other end spoke briefly. James nodded. Understood. I'll continue monitoring from a distance. He ended the call and looked at the image on his tablet. Tyler, framed by the drone footage, staring up at the sky like he already knew the truth. That night, Tyler sat at the kitchen table while Linda reheated leftovers. He was quiet, but his mind wasn't. It was racing. "Mom," he asked suddenly. "Did Dad ever fly in a helicopter?" She didn't turn from the stove. "Once, I think. His father made him take a test flight with one of their pilots." "Why?" "I saw one today. It looked like the one in the photo." She finally turned, brow furrowed. "You're watching helicopters now?" He shrugged. "I'm just saying, it hovered right over the apartment. Not a news chopper. Not police." Linda placed the plate in front of him, her voice sharper than she meant. "It's probably just someone rich heading downtown." But her hands were trembling slightly as she sat down. Tyler saw it. And now he knew, she was hiding something. At Westdale, the T-Spill page had posted again. This time, it was a screenshot of a private jet registry with the name Alexander Brooks highlighted. Below it, a blurry picture of a black helicopter above a city skyline. The caption. "Guess who might be coming to visit Westdale soon? Eyes hashtag billionaire granddad." The comments blew up in minutes. "Wait, so the expelled kid's grandpa is Alexander freaking Brooks? OMG, no wonder he got kicked out, Carlton didn't know. If that's true, someone's about to lose their job LMAO." And just like that, the narrative shifted. Tyler wasn't just some poor kid who messed up. He was a Brooks. Tuesday morning, Principal Carlton stood in his office, sweating bullets. The rumor had reached the school board. 2 trustees had already called him. One even threatened to escalate the situation if it turned out that Westdale had expelled a Brooks family member without due process. Carlton reviewed the security footage again. Tyler never touched the server room door. And the evidence? Circumstantial at best. He sat down and muttered, "What have I done?" That same day, back in East Briar, a knock came at the door. Tyler opened it. A man in a pressed gray suit stood there, holding a letter. "Mr. Tyler Brooks?" "Yeah." The man handed him the envelope. "This is for you. From the offices of Alexander Brooks." Then he turned and left. Tyler's hands shook as he closed the door. He stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Inside, a note on thick, cream-colored paper. Embossed gold lettering. Neat, precise handwriting. "Dear Tyler. I've received your letter. Thank you for writing. I'd like to meet you. Not because of obligation or legacy. But because I believe you deserve the truth. I will arrive at your school this Thursday at noon. We'll speak then. Yours. Alexander Brooks." Tyler read it 3 times. Then a 4th. Thursday. At Westdale. He smiled. For the first time in weeks. Thursday. The sky above Westdale High was a smooth slate of blue, streaked only by the occasional wispy cloud. A normal day, on the surface. But by 11:45 a.m., nothing about the school felt normal. The student body buzzed with energy, hallways packed, lockers slammed open and shut with nervous excitement, and the quad was filled with students staring up at the sky like something epic was about to happen. Because something was. It had started early that morning. Rumors ran like wildfire through classrooms, passed in whispers, group texts, and TikToks captioned, "Waiting for the billionaire to land money with wings helicopter #BrooksAir." Teachers tried, and failed, to keep students focused. Even faculty members were on edge. And in the middle of it all, Principal Carlton paced his office, tie loosened, hands trembling. He had already taken 4 calls from the school board, 2 from concerned parents, and 1 from a local news outlet asking if the Alexander Brooks was really coming to Westdale High. "I can't confirm or deny anything," he repeated like a mantra, as he peeked anxiously out the blinds toward the football field. Then, just before noon, a low thrum filled the air. Like a heartbeat, mechanical, steady, rising. The sky began to tremble. Students poured out of classrooms. Phones raised. Mouths open. From the east, cutting through the clouds like a shadow with wings, a sleek black helicopter approached the school. Its polished frame shimmered in the sun, the Brooks aviation insignia gleaming on the tail, a silver falcon, wings outstretched. The rotors chopped the air with authority. This wasn't just a machine. It was a message. And everyone got it. Inside his mom's Corolla parked just outside the school gates, Tyler stared through the windshield, heart pounding. He wore a clean hoodie, no logos, no patches, and his best pair of jeans. He hadn't said a word the entire drive. Next to him, Linda gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles were white. Her lips were pressed in a firm, unreadable line. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. Tyler nodded. "I'm not." He turned to her. "Mom, I need to know who I am." Linda looked at him, the tension in her eyes softened just enough. "You're my son. You're your father's legacy. That's who you are." "I know. But maybe. I'm his too. And I want to hear it from him." Before she could reply, the helicopter landed with a final gust of wind, sending papers, leaves, and jaws flying across the quad. The doors hissed open. And out stepped Alexander Brooks. He was dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, with a deep blue pocket square and aviator sunglasses perched on his sharp nose. His silver hair was neatly combed back, and though age rested on his shoulders, it didn't weigh him down. He looked like power incarnate. But his eyes, once he removed the sunglasses, scanned the crowd, not for admiration. They searched for Tyler. The crowd parted like water as Alexander strode across the campus lawn, his leather shoes clicking against the stone path. Students stared. Teachers whispered. Phones filmed. And from the front steps of the school, Principal Carlton rushed forward, flustered and red-faced. "Mr. Brooks. Welcome, sir, it's an honor to have you at Westdale. If I'd known you were." Alexander didn't stop walking. He barely glanced at Carlton. "I'm not here for pleasantries. I'm here for my grandson." Carlton blinked. Your grandson." Alexander finally turned, leveling the man with a look so cold it could have frozen jet fuel. "You expelled him." The entire quad gasped. Students looked at each other. Even those who doubted the rumors were now believers. No one, not even Principal Carlton, dared speak. Then from the edge of the lawn, Tyler stepped forward. One slow step at a time. Eyes wide. Heart louder than the helicopter. Alexander saw him. His posture softened, just slightly. Enough to show this wasn't just for spectacle. This meant something. The two locked eyes. And for a moment, the noise, the phones, the crowd, they disappeared. Just a boy. And a man who had missed every birthday, every science fair, every father-son project for over a decade. Tyler finally reached him. He stopped an arm's length away. Alexander's voice was quiet, but certain. "You have your father's eyes. Tyler studied the man. You never answered his letter. Alexander's jaw tensed. No. And that's my greatest regret. They stood there for a beat longer, neither moving. Both unsure of how to cross the distance built not by miles, but by choices. Tyler spoke first. Why now? Alexander glanced at the school behind him, then back. Because you asked. And because you deserve to be seen. He held out his hand. Come walk with me. The crowd watched as the two walked away together, past the stunned principal, past the buzzing phones, past the shattered assumptions. Westdale High had seen privilege before. They'd never seen power with purpose. In his office, Carlton slumped into his chair, stunned. The implications were enormous. The calls from the board. The press. The fact that he had expelled a kid who might one day own the company that donated millions to the school's aerospace program. And as if on cue, his phone rang. He didn't answer. He already knew. He was in trouble. On the edge of the school's garden, where students rarely ventured, Alexander and Tyler sat on a bench beneath a towering oak. I didn't know you existed until recently, Alexander said quietly. Your father kept things from me. And when he died, your mother made sure I stayed in the dark. She was protecting me, Tyler said. From you. Alexander nodded. I deserve that. But I'm here now. Not because I want to fix the past. I can't. But maybe, we can write something new. Tyler looked up at the sky. The same one his dad used to stare at. The same one he dreamed about flying through. I don't want your money, he said. I don't want special treatment. I just want to know who I really am. Alexander smiled. You're a Brooks, he said. But more than that, you're your father's son. And if you'll let me, I'd like to help you become whatever you dream of becoming. Tyler nodded slowly. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like he was building a future alone. By the time Tyler walked back onto campus the next morning, Westdale High felt like a different world. The same bricks. The same hallways. But the way people looked at him. Completely different. Eyes widened. Conversations hushed. Phones snapped discreet photos. Even the air seemed to hold its breath when he passed by. He didn't walk like he was proud. He didn't strut. He just moved forward, hood up, earbuds in, pretending not to notice the stares. But he noticed. Oh, he noticed. In third period, Mr. Whitaker, the chemistry teacher who once mocked Tyler for not having lab supplies, greeted him at the door with an awkward, forced smile. Ah, Mr. Brooks. Welcome back, he said, as if Tyler had just returned from summer break at a Swiss boarding school and not from being expelled. Tyler stopped. I thought I wasn't allowed back in school. Whitaker chuckled nervously. Oh, that? Misunderstanding. Principal Carlton is, reviewing everything. You're absolutely welcome in class. Right, Tyler said, expression unreadable. As he stepped inside, half the class pretended not to be watching. The other half didn't even bother. He took a seat near the back and pulled out his notebook, trying to ignore the burning curiosity around him. 2 desks away, Nina Harper, the girl who ran the T-Spill Instagram page, texted faster than lightning. Confirmed, Tyler Brooks is back at Westdale. In Whitaker's third period. No apology. No press. Just vibes. Under the post. Fire 1,103 likes. Speech balloon 272 comments. Dude came back like nothing happened. That's billionaire privilege for ya. He didn't look rich though. He's not rich. He's royalty. Meanwhile, Principal Carlton was drowning in meetings. The school board demanded answers. The superintendent wanted a formal apology. And most terrifying of all, Alexander Brooks' legal team had sent a memo stating they were closely monitoring how the situation was being handled going forward. Carlton wiped sweat from his brow and stared at Tyler's file on his desk. Expulsion, marked as pending review. In his gut, he knew Tyler was untouchable now. But worse, he might have always been. And Carlton had just exposed the school's worst tendency, to judge students by where they came from, not who they were. Back in the hallway after class, Tyler found Finn, his only real friend, leaning against the lockers near the robotics lab. Finn looked nervous, like he wasn't sure whether to fist bump or salute. "Dude," he finally said. "You got the whole school in a chokehold." Tyler cracked a small smile. "It's weird, man. Yesterday I was just that scholarship kid. Now people act like I've got a security detail." "Well, you kinda did. Helicopter and everything." "Yeah," Tyler muttered. "But they're not seeing me. Just the name." Finn shrugged. "So what? Let them stare. You're still the same guy who rebuilt my Xbox from parts you found in a junkyard." Tyler grinned. "You're never gonna let that go, huh?" "Never." Elsewhere in school, whispers reached Ms. Carmichael, the young English teacher who had quietly advocated for Tyler when others didn't. She read the rumors online, saw the footage of the landing, and now watched him from her classroom window. She knew what it was like to grow up without wealth, to earn every inch of recognition in a world stacked against you. And she feared the change this newfound attention might bring. Not just for Tyler, but for everyone who had once seen him as less. By lunchtime, the quad was buzzing. Tyler sat at a small bench near the edge, poking at his tray, while groups of kids eyed him like he was some sort of celebrity. Some approached. Some just stared. And then, Chase Reinhardt showed up. Chase, the golden-haired, varsity jacket-wearing student body VP. Son of a city councilman. Used to being the biggest fish in a small, expensive pond. He walked up with a smug smile and clapped Tyler on the shoulder. "Tyler Brooks, huh? Or should I say, Prince of the Skies?" Tyler looked up. "What do you want, Chase?" Chase shrugged. "Nothing, man. Just saying, cool entrance. Epic even. And hey, I'm sure with your connections, we'll be seeing each other at some very interesting school board meetings." Tyler's jaw tightened. "Not interested in politics." "Well, you should be. Power sticks together." Chase leaned in slightly. "Just remember who your real friends are. Lot of people suddenly want to sit at your table now." He walked off, tossing a wink over his shoulder. Tyler stared after him, unsure if that was a threat, a welcome, or both. That evening, back at the East Briar apartment, Tyler found himself on the rooftop again. The sky stretched wide and orange with sunset. The Messenger Mk2 drone sat beside him, charging. Behind him, the door opened. Linda stepped out, arms crossed. "You survived your first day back," she said quietly. Tyler nodded. "Not sure I liked it. They treating you differently? Like I'm someone else?" Linda walked over and sat beside him. "You're still you," she said. "Don't let the Brooks name tell you otherwise." He looked at her. "Why didn't you want me to know about him?" She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Because your father worked every day to make sure you never felt less than. Not because of money. But because you mattered already. You didn't need some rich man to tell you that." Tyler looked down. "I still wanted to know. And now you do." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "But don't let him rewrite your story, Tyler. You're not just his grandson. You're my son. You're your father's boy. Don't forget that." He nodded slowly. "I won't." That night, in a penthouse suite overlooking the city, Alexander Brooks stood by his window, watching planes land in the distance. James entered the room quietly. The visit caused quite a ripple. I expected as much, Alexander said. James hesitated. He's smart. Quiet. Doesn't seem interested in fame. Alexander smiled faintly. That's how you know he's worth something. James cleared his throat. The school board offered to reinstate him with a public apology. Good, Alexander replied. But unnecessary. He'll earn his way. Just like his father. A beat. Sir, are you sure you want to go slow with this? You could enroll him at the academy. Introduce him to the board. Groom him for succession. Alexander turned, eyes sharp. I don't want to hand him a throne. I want to hand him freedom. The door to the robotics lab groaned as Tyler pushed it open. It still smelled the same, metal, soldering flux, and burnt plastic. The kind of smell most people would hate. Tyler loved it. It was the smell of building something from nothing. A half-built robotic arm sat on the central workbench. Wires dangled like veins, metal plates stacked nearby, screws in neat rows. The room was quiet. Peaceful. No whispers. No cameras. Just the sound of tools and imagination. He was home. Across the lab, Finn looked up from his laptop, grinned, and shot him a thumbs up. About time you came back, Mr. Billionaire. Tyler rolled his eyes and tossed his backpack onto a stool. Don't start. Hey, man, I'm just saying, now you've got access to aerospace-grade materials. We could build a drone that delivers tacos by voice command. Tempting, Tyler smirked. But I was thinking about something else. He reached into his bag and pulled out a sketchbook. Inside, pages were filled with blueprints and concepts, some old, some recent, some wildly ambitious. He flipped to one labeled Project Skylink. Finn leaned in. You finally starting that one? Tyler nodded. Yeah. I think I need to. Skylink was more than a drone. It was a modular aerial communication system, a floating mesh network designed to restore signal and data access in disaster zones. Portable. Durable. Fully autonomous. It was a dream Tyler had shelved when his dad passed. Too expensive. Too complicated. Too not for someone like me. But now. He wasn't letting any of that stop him. As Tyler started sorting through parts and microcontrollers, the lab door opened again. In walked Ms. Carmichael. She looked around, then gave a small smile when she saw him. Glad to see you here, Tyler. He paused. They said I could come back. They did. But I would have said that anyway. He watched her walk over to the sketchbook and skim through a few pages. This is brilliant, she said softly. It's not finished. Nothing good ever is. That's what makes it worth doing. She closed the book gently. Whatever name you carry now, don't let it define you. You had this talent before anyone knew who your grandfather was. Tyler looked down, hands resting on a circuit board. I'm not doing this for him. She smiled. I know. You're doing it for the kid who once built a functioning heart rate monitor out of scraps and a watch battery. That's the Tyler I remember. And just like that, like solder heating and cooling, he felt the connection again. Not to power. But to purpose. But not everyone at Westdale was rooting for him. In a dark corner of the campus lounge, Chase Reinhardt sat with a tablet, scrolling through Tyler's social media and recent posts from the T-Spill page. Kid thinks he can waltz back in and run the school, Chase muttered. Across from him, Maddox, Chase's lanky sidekick with a gift for computers and no backbone whatsoever, looked up. You want me to dig into him? I mean, online. See if there's anything questionable. Chase smirked. Don't dig. Just nudge. Spread some doubts. Like what? Chase leaned forward. Start a new rumor. Something juicy. Doesn't have to be true, it just has to feel true. Maddox hesitated. That could backfire. Chase narrowed his eyes. Do it. And so the wheels of sabotage began to turn. That afternoon, Tyler was elbow-deep in wires, working on Skylink's first node prototype when his phone buzzed. A DM from an unknown account. Funny how fast someone goes from expelled to celebrated. Wonder what secrets you're still hiding. Some of us remember. Tyler frowned. Then another. Doesn't matter how rich your grandpa is. Trash is still trash. The messages kept coming, anonymous, petty, filled with venom. For a moment, Tyler's hands stopped working. The same feeling he had the day Carlton expelled him crept in again. That feeling of being targeted. Misunderstood. Alone. But this time, he didn't retreat. He took a breath. Wiped his hands on a cloth. And turned to Finn. Hey. You still got that server we used for the 3D print files? Yeah, why? I need a space to build something new. Not just Skylink. A community. For kids like us. Finn blinked. Wait, like a platform? Tyler nodded slowly, eyes lighting up. Yeah. A place where people can share ideas. Projects. Failures. Wins. No judgment. Just progress. Finn grinned. You're really trying to start something bigger, huh? Tyler looked at the microchip in his palm. I'm done waiting for permission. That night, back at the penthouse, Alexander Brooks stared at a news headline on his tablet. Westdale High Honors student returns, is he the future of Brooks Aviation? He placed the device down, then turned to James, who stood nearby. He's not going to take the easy path. James nodded. No, sir. Alexander smiled faintly. Good. And across the city, in a room lit only by the screen of his laptop, Chase hit post on a new anonymous entry to T-Spill. Did Tyler cheat his way back in? A secret deal behind the scenes? Sources say the board is hiding the real reason he's untouchable. He grinned. Let's see how the Golden Boy handles this. The post went live at 7:13 a.m. By 7:23, it had over 3,000 views. By first period, the hallways of Westdale High were buzzing like a kicked beehive. The headline read. How much did it cost to unexpel Tyler Brooks? I's money bag. Sources claim secret meeting between Principal Carlton and Brooks Aviation insiders. Tyler stared at the screen in silence. He was sitting alone in the back of the library, his untouched textbook open in front of him, the phone glowing with half-truths and manufactured outrage. Of course he's back, he probably bought his way in. Must be nice to have a helicopter on speed dial. He cheated the system. What's next? Valedictorian by donation. The comments weren't the worst part. It was the looks. The ones that screamed, we knew you weren't real. Just another rich kid with a shortcut. Only he wasn't. He knew he wasn't. But doubt has a funny way of creeping in, like smoke slipping under a locked door. In the main office, Principal Carlton stood stiffly behind his desk as a representative from the school board, Ms. Audrey Lang, glared at him through rimless glasses. This is exactly the kind of public attention we were trying to avoid, she snapped, slapping a printed copy of the T-Spill article onto his desk. Carlton shifted uncomfortably. There was no deal. No money changed hands. You sure about that? Because the court of public opinion doesn't care. The moment that boy's name appeared next to the Brooks fortune, everything became political. Carlton stayed quiet. Find out where the story came from, Lang ordered. And get control of your school. Or the board will. Meanwhile, in the robotics lab, Tyler and Finn sat hunched over the Skylink prototype, but neither was working. The 3D printed base sat untouched, wires dangling, a mess of tools forgotten around it. "I saw the post," Finn said, not looking up. "It's trash. Everyone knows it." "Not everyone," Tyler said. Finn glanced over. "You believe it?" Tyler didn't answer. Instead, he pushed his chair back and stood up. "I don't care what they believe. I'm not explaining myself to people who only see what they want to." Finn raised an eyebrow. "So what now?" Tyler walked to the whiteboard on the lab wall. Picked up a marker. And in all caps wrote, "Project Skylink, live demo in 2 weeks." Finn blinked. "You're launching it? That soon?" Tyler nodded. "If they want to know who I am, I'll show them." But not everyone thought that was a good idea. In her classroom, Miss Carmichael stared at the announcement email she'd just received. Tyler Brooks to present independent technology demo in 2 weeks, cleared by admin. She sighed and looked out the window, where students were gathering around their phones again. Tyler was lighting a fire. And fire draws eyes. And enemies. Across the quad, Chase Reinhardt wasn't happy. The rumor he started was supposed to knock Tyler off balance. Humiliate him. Push him back into the shadows. But instead, Tyler was building something. Chase's jaw tightened. "You think you can rewrite the story?" he muttered under his breath. Then he turned to Maddox. "I want every blueprint. Every prototype file. Every part he's ordered. If he messes up on stage, I want to be there when it crashes and burns." Maddox blinked. "That's a lot of hacking. I'm not asking for your feelings. I'm asking for results." Later that day, Tyler found himself sitting in a forgotten stairwell near the auditorium, earbuds in, staring at the ceiling. It was one of the only places no one bothered him. No gossip. No teachers. No legacy. Just quiet. Until he heard soft footsteps. Then a voice. "Can I sit?" He looked up. It was Harper Chen, student council member, editor of the school newspaper, and someone Tyler had seen around but never spoken to. He shrugged. "Sure." She sat beside him, pulling her knees up to her chest. "Crazy week." Tyler scoffed. "You could say that. I read the post." "Cool. I also looked into the site's admin. It's anonymous, but the metadata shows it was posted using a school IP." Tyler looked at her. She continued, "I don't think it matters where you came from. I think it matters where you're going." Tyler hesitated, then asked quietly, "And where do you think I'm going?" She looked over and smiled faintly. "Up." Then she stood, dusted off her jeans, and walked away. That night, back at the East Briar apartment, Tyler sat on the floor of his room, surrounded by parts and papers. Linda peeked in, frowning. "Don't you ever sleep?" He didn't answer. She stepped inside. "I saw what they posted." "I know. You okay?" "I will be." She sat beside him on the floor, resting her hand on his shoulder. "I know it hurts," she said. "Being misunderstood. But you don't have to prove anything to anyone." Tyler looked at her. "Yes, I do," he said softly. "To myself." She smiled sadly. "Then make it count." Over the next 2 weeks, the energy at Westdale changed. The rumor died down. But the tension? It built. Because Tyler Brooks wasn't retreating. He was preparing. And everyone was waiting to see what came next. Some were rooting for him. Some were waiting for him to fail. And some, like Chase, were actively working to make him fail. But none of them understood the truth. Tyler wasn't afraid of crashing. He was only afraid of never flying at all. The lab was quiet except for the soft hum of servos and the clatter of tools. Tyler hunched over the Skylink prototype, eyes narrowed behind safety glasses, fingertips steady as he soldered the final node of the modular array. Every wire, every sensor, every circuit had been placed with the care of a surgeon. It was almost ready. Almost. Finn walked in, holding a bag of snacks. "You been here all night again?" Tyler didn't look up. "I had to recalibrate the signal processor. The latency kept spiking under thermal stress." Finn blinked. "And I thought I was the nerd in this friendship." Tyler allowed a small grin. "3 more days," he muttered, mostly to himself. Finn tossed a protein bar at him. "Eat something, genius. You can't change the world on an empty stomach." But as Tyler tore the wrapper open, a strange look passed over Finn's face. Brief. Almost guilty. And gone before Tyler could notice. Later that day, Miss Carmichael poked her head into the robotics lab. "Hey, Tyler. Board is asking for a formal title for your project." "PR reasons." Tyler scratched the back of his head. "Call it, Skylink, Real-Time Emergency Mesh Network for Communication Loss Zones." Carmichael chuckled. "Catchy." He shrugged. "It's not supposed to sound cool. It's supposed to save lives." Her smile faded into something deeper. "Keep doing it for the right reasons." But across campus, in a dimly lit computer lab tucked behind the AV room, Maddox was doing something very wrong. His screen glowed with lines of stolen code, Tyler's code. Blueprints, firmware, schematics. Chase leaned over his shoulder, eyes sharp. "Inject a delay in the wireless sync protocol," he whispered. "Make the drone crash at launch. Not before. Not after. Exactly when everyone's watching." Maddox hesitated. This could mess up the whole unit. What if he figures it out? Chase grinned. "Then he learns the hard way, this world doesn't reward quiet genius. It rewards control." 2 days later, Tyler was running his final pre-demo test. Finn hovered near the wall, pretending to scroll on his phone, but he was watching, closely. Tyler launched the node from the bench. The rotors buzzed to life, lifting the compact drone into the air with elegant precision. It hovered. Stabilized. Then, without warning, it dipped sharply and spiraled into the floor with a clack-clang-crack. "No. No, no, no." Tyler rushed over and picked up the unit. The wings were bent. The motherboard, fried. He stared at it in disbelief. "I ran this setup yesterday. It worked perfectly." Finn walked over, too slowly. "You think it's interference?" Tyler shook his head. This was a timing error. The sync module, it received the wrong signal. His eyes narrowed. Something wasn't right. That night, Tyler tore apart the damaged drone on his bedroom floor. Linda watched from the doorway. "You okay?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "Someone tampered with it." Linda stepped closer. "You're sure?" "I know my work. This wasn't a bug, it was planted. Like someone rewrote the boot timing. It's subtle, but I can see it." Her face hardened. "Who would do that?" Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then whispered, "Someone who had access." The next morning, Finn waited in the lab like always. Tyler walked in, slow. Focused. "Hey," Finn said, too casually. "You figure out the crash?" Tyler nodded. "Yeah. Code injection. Pretty sophisticated. They knew what they were doing." Finn blinked. "Sucks, man. Maybe the backup." "I already fixed it," Tyler said. He watched Finn's reaction closely. No shock. Just a beat of silence. Then, "That's awesome, man. Tyler stepped closer. You know what's weird? Finn looked up. Only 2 people have access to the internal server that stores my build files. Finn's throat bobbed. Tyler kept going. One is me. The other is, you. Finn looked away. Tyler, come on. You were the only one in the lab overnight last Tuesday. I found your prints on the keyboard. You even left your energy drink can. Dude. Just tell me why, man. The words came out quieter than Tyler meant them to. Not angry. Just hurt. Finn stood frozen. Then finally, he spoke. You left me behind. Tyler's brow furrowed. What? You became someone else, Tyler. You got the name. The attention. The access. The helicopter. You didn't need me anymore. I never stopped needing you. You stopped seeing me. Tyler stepped back, breath tight in his chest. You could have talked to me. And said what? Hey, I feel small now that everyone's looking at you. That I feel like a footnote in your story. Tyler said nothing. Because what could he say? Later that day, Tyler stood in Miss Carmichael's classroom, staring out the window. I don't know if I can still do the demo, he admitted. She looked up from her desk. Because your friend betrayed you? Because now I know what it costs. Carmichael stood. Walked to him. Being seen always costs something. But hiding, she said. That costs everything. Tyler looked at her, then nodded. I'm going through with it. That night, in a quiet corner of the school network, Tyler uploaded something new. Not just code. Not just tech. But a statement. Skylink is more than a drone. It's what happens when we believe in building something better, even after people try to tear it down. Then he hit send. In another part of town, Alexander Brooks sat in his study. James walked in. The boy's drone was sabotaged. Alexander looked up, unsurprised. And? He rebuilt it. He's going forward with the launch. Alexander smiled faintly. Then he's almost ready. James hesitated. For what? Alexander folded his hands. For the next step. The auditorium was filled with a tense silence. Students, faculty, and special guests filled the rows, all eyes fixed on the stage. Tyler stood behind the curtain, hands clenched into fists at his sides. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing against his chest, the cool breeze from the air conditioning doing little to quell the heat in his face. The demo was supposed to be his big breakthrough, the moment that proved he wasn't just a rich kid with a fancy last name. This was the moment he could silence every doubt, show everyone that his talents went far beyond his family's wealth. But then the sabotage. Then Finn. Then the quiet, lingering fear of failure. Tyler took a deep breath and looked at the screen beside him. The countdown had begun. Just 2 minutes left. You got this, a voice said behind him. Tyler turned to see Harper Chin standing there, her usual calm demeanor softened with a hint of genuine support in her eyes. Harper, he said, forcing a smile. I didn't expect you to show up. She shrugged. When you said you were doing this for more than yourself. I wanted to see it for myself. Thanks, he said, swallowing hard. I think I need it. Harper gave him a nod. Don't think about the people watching. Think about what you've built. No one can take that away from you. Tyler's heart skipped a beat. She was right. This was his moment. His creation. His work. The timer hit 0. Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of Principal Carlton echoed over the speakers. Thank you for attending today's showcase of Skylink, an innovative communication solution by Tyler Brooks. We will now begin the live demonstration. The curtain pulled back, revealing a sleek, metallic drone sitting on a small launch platform. It looked elegant in the spotlight, its rotors poised and ready for flight. Tyler stepped up to the podium, his hands resting on the controls in front of him. "Here we go," he muttered under his breath. He glanced at the screen, confirming that the drone was properly calibrated. The audience was silent, waiting for the first move. With a deep breath, Tyler pressed a button. The drone's rotors began to spin, slowly at first, before it lifted into the air. The crowd gasped in awe as the drone hovered steadily. Tyler felt a wave of relief flood through him. It was working. The system was holding. He could do this. He raised his hand, guiding the drone forward. It zipped across the stage, its movement smooth and precise. The crowd cheered as it executed a perfect loop-de-loop. Tyler smiled, adrenaline kicking in. This is it, he thought. I'm not just proving myself, I'm changing the game. But then, just as the drone completed its final loop, a strange noise filled the room. The drone wobbled. Tyler's eyes widened as the drone suddenly plunged toward the floor. He slammed his hands down on the emergency shutoff, but it was too late. The drone crashed to the ground with a sickening thud. There was an audible gasp from the crowd. For a moment, Tyler stood frozen, staring at the ruined drone in disbelief. "What the hell happened?" he whispered. "Not again," Finn muttered, standing near the back of the auditorium, his face pale. He had watched the entire demonstration, seen the drone's flawless performance, only to watch it crash at the last moment. He could feel the weight of guilt pressing against his chest. His mind raced. There had to be something wrong with the system. Maybe the code had failed again. But then why had it worked perfectly during the tests? In the back of his mind, something else lingered, the nagging feeling that the sabotage might not have been a random glitch. He knew that Tyler hadn't messed up the code himself. The issue was intentional. Tyler stood still, his mind racing. The room had gone quiet, the faces around him now full of confusion and disappointment. "Are you all right?" Harper asked softly, stepping up beside him. Tyler didn't answer at first. He was too stunned, too humiliated to speak. The drone he had worked so hard to build lay in ruins at his feet, and the harsh reality of failure crashed over him like a tidal wave. "Tyler?" Harper repeated, her voice gentle. I can't fix this," he said, his voice tight with emotion. "It's over. Everything's ruined." "No," Harper said firmly. "It's not." Tyler looked up at her, the anger and frustration boiling inside him. "What's the point? The drone's destroyed. The demo's a failure. I've lost." Harper's eyes softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. "You haven't lost yet," she said. "It's not about one demo. It's about what you do next. You've already shown everyone what you're capable of. This is just a setback." Tyler looked at her, torn. She was right, but it didn't feel right. Behind him, Chase Reinhardt stood with a smug grin, his arms crossed over his chest. He had been waiting for this moment. He had made sure that Tyler's demo would fail. The sabotage was supposed to be his victory, his confirmation that Tyler couldn't do this. But seeing Tyler standing there, on the verge of collapse, almost felt like something else. Something he hadn't expected. Regret. Tyler turned to the shattered drone on the stage and took a deep breath. "Okay," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "Okay. I'm not done." He walked forward, grabbing the remote control from the podium. The audience watched in silence as Tyler crouched down beside the wreckage of the drone. He examined it quickly, then looked up at the crowd, his face set with determination. "I'm not done," he repeated. "This thing can still fly." A murmur of surprise spread through the audience as Tyler worked quickly, reattaching parts, fixing connections. He wasn't giving up. He wasn't letting this one failure define him. Minutes passed, and the crowd remained on edge, watching Tyler as he repaired the drone piece by piece. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Tyler stood up, his fingers trembling slightly as he held the remote control. He pressed a button. The rotors began to spin again. And slowly, the drone lifted into the air, higher and higher, until it hovered once more. The crowd erupted into applause. Tyler let out a long breath and allowed himself a smile. He had done it. Not because he was perfect, but because he refused to quit. But as the applause continued, one question lingered in Tyler's mind. Who had sabotaged him? And why? The applause was deafening. Tyler's heart still raced, but he could feel the weight of the moment. He had done it. He had pulled off the impossible. The drone had crashed, but he rebuilt it in front of everyone, proving that he was more than just a spoiled rich kid. He was a creator, an innovator, and, most importantly, a fighter. But despite the cheering around him, something gnawed at the back of his mind. He couldn't ignore the feeling that he was still missing something. Something bigger was at play, something that had been lurking behind the scenes for far too long. After the demo, Tyler barely had time to catch his breath before he was surrounded by reporters, students, and faculty. The media was already buzzing with excitement, asking questions about his breakthrough project and what he planned to do next. He gave a few standard answers, nodded politely, and tried to stay composed. But his mind wasn't on the cameras. It wasn't on the applause. It was on one thing, the sabotage. Tyler knew, deep down, that the crash had been no accident. Someone had tampered with his system, and he was determined to find out who. As soon as the event wrapped up, Tyler made his way to the back of the auditorium, trying to find a moment of privacy. He needed time to think, to process what had just happened, but there were too many questions swirling in his mind. Tyler. He turned around to see Harper approaching, her face serious. "Hey," Tyler said, trying to smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Thanks for sticking around." Harper didn't smile back. "You know something's not right, right?" Tyler's stomach dropped. He knew exactly what she was talking about. "Yeah, I'm not stupid," he replied. "Someone sabotaged my drone, and I need to figure out who." She raised an eyebrow. "You've been looking into it, haven't you?" "Of course," he said, his tone sharp. "But I'm running out of options. Finn's been acting weird, but I can't be sure." Harper shook her head. "You really think Finn would sabotage you? After everything you two have been through?" Tyler hesitated. "I don't know anymore." "Then who else could it be?" Harper pressed. "Think about it. The sabotage was too precise, too calculated. It was planned." Tyler's mind raced. She was right. The sabotage wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Whoever had done it knew his system inside and out. It had to be someone with access, someone who understood the project. Tyler's heart sank as a realization struck him. It wasn't Finn. The thought hit Tyler like a ton of bricks. It wasn't Finn who had sabotaged his work, it was someone else. Someone closer to him than he had ever imagined. Someone with the power to move in the shadows without ever being caught. Later that evening, Tyler was alone in his room, surrounded by a mess of wires, old sketches, and the damaged drone. The failure of the demo had been a blow, but now it felt almost trivial compared to the real problem, the identity of the saboteur. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Chase Reinhardt, the one person Tyler had always dismissed as a competitor. A show-off. Someone who always had a smile on his face, but it never reached his eyes. The message was short, but it hit Tyler like a slap. "Nice demo today. But you're not the only one with an ace up their sleeve." Tyler's blood ran cold. Chase. Could it really be him? The smug, arrogant senior who had always found ways to undermine him during school projects. Tyler had been so focused on Finn that he hadn't even considered Chase. But now that the thought was in his head, it made perfect sense. Chase had always been around, lurking in the background. He'd seen Tyler's progress. He knew how to exploit his weaknesses. The next day, Tyler confronted Chase in the school parking lot, just as the final bell rang. "Chase," Tyler called, his voice low but firm. Chase stopped in his tracks, his usual cocky smile widening when he saw Tyler approach. "Hey, man. What's up? You need something?" Tyler took a step closer, keeping his gaze steady. "I know you were behind the sabotage." Chase's grin faltered for a split second, before returning with even more swagger. "Oh, you think I'd waste my time on your little drone? Cut the crap, Chase. I know what you did. You've been trying to bring me down since the beginning." Chase's expression darkened for a moment, and Tyler could see the calculation in his eyes. "You think you've got this all figured out, don't you, Brooks?" Chase said, his voice low and cold. "You think because your name's on a fancy building and you've got some fancy tech that everyone's supposed to just roll over for you? It doesn't work that way." Tyler's jaw clenched. "So you admit it?" Chase shrugged nonchalantly. "What are you going to do about it? You think the board's going to care about some tech failure? They won't. They're already looking at the next big thing. And I plan to be a part of it. You should have just stuck to your little game." Tyler stood frozen, his hands shaking with anger. "You'll never win." Chase smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We'll see about that." As Tyler walked away, his mind was swirling. Chase had done it. He'd been the one to sabotage his work, the one who had tried to destroy everything Tyler had worked for. But why? Why go to such lengths? Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Chase wasn't just trying to beat him in a competition. He was playing a much bigger game, a game that Tyler hadn't even realized he was a part of. That night, Tyler stood in front of his laptop, staring at the lines of code that had once been his pride and joy. But now, it was tainted. He could see the traces of the tampering, the subtle changes that had been made. It wasn't just sabotage. It was a message. A warning. Tyler closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He wasn't going to let Chase win. Not now. Not ever. He had a choice to make. He could walk away, give up, and let Chase take the spotlight. Or he could fight back, expose the truth, and show everyone what real innovation looked like. Tyler's fingers hovered over the keyboard as the decision settled into his gut. He was going to fight. And he was going to win. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The following day, Tyler couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. Everything he'd worked for was at risk, not just because of a failed demo, but because someone had intentionally tried to destroy his future. He'd always known Chase was a competitor, but he never imagined that Chase would go to such lengths to bring him down. Now that the reality of the sabotage was settling in, Tyler felt a deep sense of anger, and a hunger for justice that would not be easily satisfied. Tyler sat in the library that afternoon, staring at his laptop screen. He had combed through the code countless times, trying to find a pattern, something that would tell him how the sabotage had been executed. And then, finally, there it was. A small line of code, buried in the middle of the encryption layer, something so subtle that it could have been missed by anyone who wasn't paying attention. It was a redirect, an intentional malfunction designed to make the drone lose control at a critical moment. Tyler sat back, his breath catching in his throat. It wasn't just sabotage. It was a planned attack on everything he'd built. But what Tyler didn't understand yet, was the why. Why would Chase, of all people, go this far? He needed answers. And he needed them fast. That evening, Tyler found himself walking along the school's quiet hallways, the hum of fluorescent lights above the only sound. He was headed to his next class, but his mind was elsewhere. Chase was always one step ahead of him, and Tyler was beginning to realize how deep this betrayal really went. He rounded a corner near the tech lab when he spotted Finn standing by the lockers, looking anxious. Tyler hesitated, unsure whether he should even speak to Finn. After all, Finn had been his best friend, but after everything that had happened, Tyler wasn't sure who to trust anymore. But then Finn looked up, and their eyes met. "Tyler," Finn said, his voice tight. "Can we talk?" Tyler stopped. He didn't know whether he wanted to hear what Finn had to say, but he didn't have many options. He nodded, motioning for Finn to lead the way. They sat in an empty classroom, the door closed behind them. "I know you don't trust me," Finn started, his voice quiet. "But you have to believe me, I had no idea about the sabotage." Tyler's eyes narrowed. "Then why did you leave me hanging during the demo? Why didn't you tell me what you knew?" Finn rubbed his face, clearly frustrated. "I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure who was behind it, and I didn't want to make things worse. But now I can see what's going on. Chase has been playing everyone. He's not just some competitor, he's been orchestrating this whole thing, manipulating people to get what he wants." Tyler's jaw clenched. "I figured that out myself. But how did you know?" Finn sighed, his shoulders slumping. "Because I've been in the middle of it all. I overheard him talking to some of the board members last week. He's been trying to buy them off, Tyler. He's trying to get the school's endorsement for his own project, and he's willing to do anything to make sure yours fails." Tyler stared at Finn, trying to process what he was hearing. "You're telling me that Chase has been talking to the board behind my back?" "Yeah," Finn said, his voice filled with guilt. "I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't just sit back and let him destroy everything you've worked for." Tyler rubbed his temples, trying to absorb the magnitude of the betrayal. "So, this isn't just about a drone. This is about something bigger." Finn nodded. "Exactly. Chase is playing a long game, and he's willing to sabotage anyone who gets in his way." Tyler stood up, pacing back and forth. "I need to expose him. I need to stop him before he takes everything from me." Finn stood too, his expression serious. "I can help you. I know what Chase has been up to. I can get you the proof you need." Tyler stopped and looked at Finn, his gaze sharp. "And why should I trust you now?" Finn took a step forward, his voice earnest. "Because I know I messed up. I know I wasn't there for you when you needed me. But I'm here now, Tyler. I'm not going to let Chase get away with this." Tyler's mind raced. For a moment, he considered the offer. Finn had betrayed him before, but it seemed like he was genuinely trying to make things right. Maybe he could trust him now. After all, they had been friends for years. But the question still remained, was Finn telling the truth, or was he part of the game, too? Tyler stared at Finn for a long moment before finally nodding. "Okay. But if this goes south, if you're lying to me again, I won't trust you ever again." Finn nodded quickly. "I get it. I'm in this, 100%. You'll have my back, and I'll have yours." The two of them spent the next several hours piecing together everything they knew. Finn revealed that Chase had been meeting with several influential board members at the school, including Principal Carlton, trying to sway them toward backing his project instead of Tyler's. Chase's plan was becoming clearer by the minute. He had been systematically undermining Tyler's demo, his progress, and his credibility, all in an effort to position himself as the new face of innovation at the school. He wanted to win, by any means necessary. The next morning, Tyler and Finn met in secret before school started. They were both determined to gather the evidence they needed to take Chase down. "Do you have everything?" Tyler asked, his voice tense. Finn nodded, pulling out a flash drive from his pocket. "I hacked into the school's internal email system last night. I have copies of all the communications between Chase and the board members." Tyler took the flash drive and inserted it into his laptop. The files opened one by one, revealing email exchanges and meeting notes, conversations about endorsements, secret deals, and even a financial proposal that involved backing Chase's new project in exchange for the school's sponsorship. "This is it," Tyler said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We have him." Finn looked at him. "What do we do now?" Tyler closed his laptop, a cold determination in his eyes. "We go to the board. We expose Chase for what he is. And we make sure everyone knows the truth." As the final bell rang that afternoon, Tyler knew that his next step was crucial. He couldn't back down now. With the evidence in hand, he was ready to take on the enemy who had been playing him all along. But as Tyler and Finn made their way to the administration building, something else lurked in the shadows, a force more powerful than they could imagine. The air in the administration building was thick with tension. Tyler's hands were clammy as he held the flash drive containing the damning evidence. He and Finn stood in front of the large wooden doors leading into the boardroom, waiting for their moment to strike. Tyler's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing. This was it. This was the moment when he would expose Chase for who he really was, for the man who had tried to ruin everything he'd worked for. But as he stood there, an unsettling thought gnawed at him. Was it really enough to just expose Chase? Was the sabotage all there was to this? Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that there was something bigger at play, something more than just competition between two students. "Are you ready?" Finn asked, his voice low but steady. Tyler took a deep breath. "I have to be." They pushed open the door, and the low murmur of voices stopped immediately. The school board members, the principal, and even some of the senior faculty were gathered around the large conference table. Chase was seated at the head of the table, his usual smug smile plastered on his face. He didn't even flinch when he saw Tyler and Finn walk in, as though he had already anticipated it. Tyler's eyes locked with Chase's, and for a split second, he saw something cold, something calculating, in Chase's expression. Tyler's stomach dropped, but he didn't look away. "Ah, here they are," Chase said smoothly, standing up and motioning to Tyler and Finn. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Tyler clenched his fists at his sides, resisting the urge to lash out. "I'm here to make sure you never get away with this." The board members exchanged puzzled glances. Principal Carlton, a tall, imposing figure, leaned forward in his seat. "Mr. Brooks, what exactly are you accusing Mr. Reinhardt of?" Tyler didn't hesitate. He pulled out the flash drive and placed it on the table. "I'm accusing Chase of sabotaging my project, manipulating the board, and trying to destroy everything I've worked for." There was a collective gasp from the room. Chase's expression faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Chase said, his voice dripping with false calmness. "Tyler's been upset about the competition, and now he's trying to blame me for his own mistakes. I mean, look at the demo. It crashed. I'm sure that was his fault." Tyler could feel the anger bubbling up, but he knew he couldn't let Chase manipulate the situation. "I've got the proof, Chase. All you've done is lie to everyone here, trying to cover up what you've done. It's all in the emails." Principal Carlton motioned for Tyler to continue. "What emails?" he asked. Tyler quickly plugged the flash drive into the computer on the conference table. The screen flickered to life, and the emails between Chase and several of the board members appeared, each one more damning than the last. "These emails show you were working behind the scenes, manipulating the board to endorse your project while sabotaging mine," Tyler said, his voice shaking with the weight of the truth. "You've been planning this all along." The room fell silent as the board members read the emails. Some shook their heads, clearly shocked by what they were seeing. Others exchanged whispers, looking uncertain. Chase's eyes narrowed as he stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over in the process. "This is ridiculous. This is a setup. Someone is framing me, Tyler. You're just trying to turn the board against me because you can't handle losing. Don't you see it? You're the one who's desperate." Tyler was done listening to his lies. He raised his voice, cutting Chase off. "I've been working day and night to build something real, something that could change everything. But you've been playing games, manipulating people, and throwing me under the bus just so you can take my place." The tension in the room was palpable, but Chase wasn't backing down. He shot a cold look at Tyler. "You think I'm the only one who's willing to do whatever it takes to win? You're nothing but a little boy who got lucky. I've been working with the right people, the powerful people. You can't compete with that." Tyler's mind raced. The pieces were starting to fall into place. Chase wasn't just competing for the school's recognition. He was after something bigger, something far more dangerous. Just then, a voice broke through the heated confrontation. It was Harper, who had entered the room quietly, standing by the door with an unreadable expression. She had a folder in her hands, and she was looking directly at the board members. "I think you all need to hear something else," she said, stepping forward. Her presence in the room was like a jolt of electricity. Everyone turned to face her. Tyler's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected Harper to be here, but in that moment, it made perfect sense. She had been part of this fight from the beginning, and now, she was ready to take it to the next level. Harper opened the folder, revealing more documents, more emails, more communications, and even photos. "These aren't just from Tyler's project," she said, her voice calm but firm. "These are from other students, other tech projects that Chase has been involved in. And, let's just say, Chase isn't just trying to undermine Tyler, he's been trying to take over the entire innovation department here at the school." The room went quiet again. Chase looked almost panicked now, his confident demeanor slipping. The board members leaned in closer, their eyes wide with disbelief. "These documents show that Chase has been using his connections to blackmail and pressure other students into handing over their projects, sabotaging anything that threatens his ambition. And he's done this for months," Harper continued, her eyes locked on Chase. "This isn't just about a rivalry. This is about control. And he'll stop at nothing to get it." Chase's face turned white as he scrambled for an explanation, but Harper's evidence was overwhelming. The truth was out, and there was no denying it anymore. Principal Carlton finally spoke, his voice cold and authoritative. "Mr. Reinhardt, I think it's clear we have a serious issue on our hands. You will be suspended pending further investigation. This school does not tolerate such behavior." Tyler felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it wasn't over yet. He had fought for this moment, but there was still so much more to be done. Chase wasn't the only one who needed to be stopped. As Chase was escorted out of the room by security, Tyler turned to Harper. "Thank you. I didn't expect you to." She smiled, cutting him off. "You don't have to thank me. We've got each other's backs." Tyler nodded, feeling an unexpected sense of camaraderie. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't alone. But just as they were about to leave the room, Principal Carlton called out to Tyler. "Mr. Brooks, wait." Tyler turned, his heart racing. "What now?" Carlton walked toward him, his face unreadable. "You've proven your point today. But there's something bigger happening here. Something I think you'll want to be a part of." Tyler raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Carlton's expression softened, but only slightly. "We've been watching your work. Your potential. This school is looking to invest heavily in the next generation of innovators. I think you're ready for it." Tyler's heart raced as Principal Carlton's words echoed in his mind. "We've been watching your work. Your potential. This school is looking to invest heavily in the next generation of innovators. I think you're ready for it." It felt surreal. The validation he'd been working toward for so long was finally within his grasp. But at the same time, something inside him felt uneasy. There was too much at stake now. Too many secrets had been uncovered. And Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that even after everything with Chase had been exposed, the fight wasn't over yet. Principal Carlton motioned to a nearby chair. "Please, sit down, Tyler. There's something I think you should hear. Tyler hesitated for a moment but then complied. He sat down across from Carlton, his eyes scanning the room. It was a small, private office, dimly lit, with a large wooden desk at the center. Carlton's eyes were focused on him now, a look of intensity behind his calm demeanor. "I'm sure this all feels overwhelming, but we've been following your progress for quite some time," Carlton began. "The school has invested a lot in its STEM program, and we're looking for students who show the drive, the vision to take this school, and their careers, far beyond the classroom. You've already proven you have what it takes to create something extraordinary." Tyler could feel the weight of Carlton's gaze. He wanted to say something, wanted to ask questions, to probe deeper, but the words felt stuck in his throat. "The school's board is looking to fund an innovative tech incubator here at Westfield High," Carlton continued. "And we believe you're the perfect candidate to be a part of that initiative. A project that could give you the resources, the mentorship, and the backing to truly make a name for yourself." Tyler's mind spun. This was everything he had dreamed of. This was the opportunity to launch his career, to build something bigger than just a high school project. All he had to do was accept. But something was bothering him. This sudden turn of events felt too convenient, too perfectly timed. After everything with Chase, was he really ready to trust the school, to trust the people who had watched silently as everything unfolded? "What's the catch?" Tyler asked, his voice cautious. "Why me? Why now?" Carlton's expression remained unchanged, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps respect, or maybe just the weight of what he was about to say. "It's not about why you, Tyler. It's about what you represent. The school needs students who are willing to take risks. We want someone who can push boundaries, someone with a vision. And we believe you're the one who can lead this initiative. We're giving you the chance to prove it." The more Carlton spoke, the more Tyler's suspicions grew. It was hard to ignore the political undertones of this offer. Why now, after everything that had happened with Chase? Why wasn't he just left to pick up the pieces of his failed demo, like so many others before him? Tyler's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a knock on the door. Before he could react, the door opened, and Harper stepped inside, her usual calm demeanor replaced by something more serious. "Tyler," she said, looking directly at him. "I think we need to talk." Carlton's eyes flickered to Harper, but he didn't seem surprised by her appearance. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, folding his hands on the desk. "Of course. You both have a lot to discuss." Tyler's heart skipped a beat. What was Harper doing here? Had she somehow figured out something he hadn't? "Harper," Tyler began, his voice cautious, "what's going on?" Harper walked over to the chair beside him, her eyes dark with concern. "I've been looking into the incubator project, Tyler. I think you need to be careful. This could be a setup." Tyler stared at her, his brow furrowing. "A setup? What are you talking about?" Harper took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the edge of the chair. "I've seen how the board works. I've seen the politics of this school. The incubator might seem like a dream come true, but what if it's not about innovation at all? What if it's just another way for them to control the students, to push their own agenda?" Carlton shifted in his seat, his expression hardening. "Harper, I don't think this is the time for accusations. We're offering Tyler a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Harper didn't back down. "That's exactly what they want you to think. I've seen this happen before. There's always a hidden agenda, always strings attached. Tyler, don't be fooled." Tyler turned back to Harper, trying to process what she was saying. He knew Harper was sharp, that she was always one step ahead, but could she be right? Was this really a golden opportunity, or was there more to this than met the eye? "Harper," Tyler said slowly, "what exactly are you suggesting? That the incubator is just a trap?" "I'm not saying it's all bad," Harper replied, her voice low. "I just think you need to be careful. It's not as simple as it seems. The people behind this, the board, Principal Carlton, they have their own motives. You can't just trust them because they tell you what you want to hear. Remember who's been behind all of this from the start. Tyler felt the weight of her words sink in. There was too much at stake now. The closer he got to the truth, the more complicated it all seemed. He had spent so long fighting against Chase, against the sabotage, only to find himself in another tangled mess. Carlton cleared his throat, his voice firm. I understand your concerns, Harper, but I assure you, this is a legitimate opportunity for Tyler. We want to invest in his future. That's all. Tyler's gaze shifted between Harper and Carlton, both of them looking at him, waiting for him to make a decision. His mind was in turmoil. On one hand, the incubator was everything he had dreamed of. The resources, the mentorship, the potential to bring his ideas to life on a larger scale, it was a dream come true. On the other hand, something about it felt like it was too good to be true. Had the board been quietly watching him all along, ready to pounce when the moment was right? Finally, Tyler stood up, his decision weighing heavily on him. I need some time to think about this, he said, his voice steady but uncertain. This isn't just about me. I need to understand what's really going on here before I make any decisions. Harper nodded, her expression softening as she stood up beside him. Take your time, Tyler. But just remember, trust is earned, not given. Carlton seemed to sense that Tyler wasn't entirely convinced. He sighed, his tone shifting slightly. Of course, Mr. Brooks. Take all the time you need. But remember, opportunities like this don't come around often. Tyler turned and walked toward the door, Harper following closely behind. As they stepped into the hallway, the weight of the decision pressed heavily on his chest. Tyler couldn't shake the feeling of unease as he walked out of Principal Carlton's office. His mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and unanswered questions. Harper's warnings echoed in his ears, but so did Carlton's promises. This incubator, this golden opportunity, could propel him into the future he'd always dreamed of. Yet something about it felt too convenient, too much like a carefully crafted trap. As Tyler and Harper walked down the quiet hallway, he could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. Harper, usually composed and confident, had been visibly shaken earlier. That was enough to make him pause and reconsider everything he thought he knew. What if the board was just using him? What if this was all a game to them, one where the students were just pawns? You're thinking about it, aren't you? Harper's voice broke through his thoughts. Tyler nodded slowly. I can't stop thinking about it. It's everything I've wanted. It's my chance to make a real impact. But what if it's a setup? What if they just want me to be a figurehead for something bigger? Harper stopped walking and turned to face him, her eyes locked with his. That's exactly what I'm worried about. You think this is about you and your project, but it's not. It's about control. The board, Carlton, they've been grooming someone like you for a long time. They know you have potential, but they also know how to use it. Tyler felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying they've been planning this for years? That they've been watching me? Harper shrugged, her expression grim. Not just you, Tyler. They've been doing this with other students before you. The ones they think are good enough to lead their little incubator. But the question is, what's their real agenda? Tyler was silent, his mind racing as he processed what Harper had just said. He had always been driven, always focused on proving himself, but what if he had been so focused on the prize that he missed the bigger picture? What if the people in power had their own plans for his future, and he was just part of the puzzle? As they reached the main exit, Tyler stopped and looked around. The school felt different now, almost oppressive. He had always loved Westfield High, the place where he'd started his journey, the place where he first dreamed of creating something extraordinary. But now, the halls seemed filled with hidden motives, shadows lurking around every corner. Have you looked into the other students who were in the running for the incubator? Tyler asked, his voice quieter now, as if he didn't want to be overheard. Harper nodded. I've done my research. There are a few names, but none of them stand out like you do. The others have been here a lot longer, and they've been trained for something like this. They've been part of the school's projects, the ones that have always been funded by outside investors. The incubator is just the next step for them. Tyler felt a knot form in his stomach. So, they already have their own candidates. Why even offer it to me? Harper's eyes darkened. Because you're different, Tyler. You're the wild card. You're someone who could shake things up, someone they can mold into their perfect candidate. But once you're in, you won't have the freedom to choose your own path. You'll be stuck in their game. Tyler took a deep breath, looking out over the school grounds. He felt a strange sense of betrayal in the pit of his stomach. He had worked so hard for so long to get to this point, and now it felt like the ground beneath him was crumbling. His vision for the future was slipping away, replaced by a darker reality, one where his success wasn't entirely his own. That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his thoughts a jumble of frustration and confusion. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, and he reached for it, hoping to distract himself from the spiraling thoughts in his head. It was a message from Finn. "Are you still in? We need to talk about the next step." Tyler stared at the screen, his mind racing. What was Finn talking about? Was he still on the same path, or had he figured out that something was off too? He quickly typed back. "Let's meet tomorrow. I need to sort some things out first." The reply came almost instantly, "All right. But we can't wait too long. This could slip away." Tyler dropped the phone back onto the nightstand and stared out the window. The school, the incubator, Chase, it all felt like a web of lies and manipulation. He had always believed in the merit of his work, the value of pushing himself to create something meaningful. But now, it seemed like everything was being controlled by forces he didn't even fully understand. The next morning, Tyler met with Finn at their usual spot, an old bench outside the school, tucked away beneath the shade of a large oak tree. Finn was already waiting for him, his face serious, but his posture relaxed. "What's going on, man?" Finn asked, offering Tyler a bottle of water. Tyler sat down beside him and took the water, opening it but not drinking. "I don't know what to think anymore. Harper was right. This whole incubator thing, it's not just about my project. It's about control. About them using me to push their agenda. I don't trust Carlton or the board anymore." Finn raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "This could be our shot, Tyler. This is everything we've worked for. Why back out now?" Tyler looked at him, his eyes searching Finn's face for understanding. "Because it's not what it seems. I'm not just building my future. I'm building something for them, something they can use to control the next generation of students. I don't want to be part of that." Finn's expression softened, but he didn't back down. "So, what are you going to do? You can't just walk away from this. The opportunity is right in front of you. But if you think this is all a game, then maybe it's time to start playing on your terms." Tyler looked out at the school, his mind wrestling with the weight of the decision. He had always believed that the right choices would lead to success, that following his passion and staying true to his vision would be enough. But now, it seemed like there were no clear paths, only shadows and uncertainty. "I don't know," Tyler finally admitted, his voice low. "I want to take this opportunity, but I don't want to lose myself in the process. I don't want to be another pawn in their game." Finn placed a hand on his shoulder, giving him a reassuring squeeze. "Then don't be. Make them play your game. You've got the power to do that, Tyler. You just have to believe it." As Tyler sat there, the weight of his future pressing down on him, he realized that this wasn't just about the incubator or the school. It was about something bigger. It was about taking control of his own path, about refusing to be manipulated by those who saw him as nothing more than a means to an end. He had come this far. He wasn't about to let anyone take that away from him. The weight of the decision pressed on Tyler's chest as he stood outside the school, staring at the towering building that had been both his sanctuary and his prison. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the campus. It felt like the calm before the storm, as if every moment since he'd first walked through those doors had been leading him to this exact point. He had made up his mind. Tyler was going to play the game, but on his terms. It wasn't an easy decision. He could already feel the tension building inside him. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized there was no turning back. He had spent years working hard, trying to prove himself worthy of success. Now, the stakes were higher than ever. The incubator project wasn't just a chance to build something, it was a battleground for control. And Tyler wasn't about to let anyone else dictate the terms of his future. His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his thoughts. It was a message from Harper. "Are you still sure about this?" the text read. "You know what you're walking into, right?" Tyler stared at the message for a moment, a knot tightening in his stomach. Harper had been the one to warn him, to tell him to watch out for the strings the board had attached to this offer. But now, she was asking if he was still sure. Was he? The truth was, he wasn't sure. He didn't know if there was a way out once he stepped into the incubator, but he knew one thing: he couldn't live with the regret of not trying to take control of his own path. He typed back, "I have to. I can't just let them control me." A few seconds later, Harper's reply came, "Then make it count. You're not the only one with secrets to keep." Tyler felt a shiver run down his spine as he read those words. There was so much more going on than he had realized, so many layers to this game. But Harper was right. If he was going to make it out on top, he needed to be smarter than everyone else. He needed to have his own secrets, his own cards to play. The next morning, Tyler walked into the school with a newfound sense of purpose. He was no longer just a student. He was a player in the game, and he was ready to take control of the narrative. As he entered the main hall, he was greeted by familiar faces, his classmates, teachers, and staff members who had watched him grow over the past few years. But today, everything felt different. They were all part of the same system, and Tyler could feel the weight of their eyes on him. Some looked at him with admiration, others with envy, but none of them knew the truth. None of them knew the choices he was about to make. He spotted Finn by the lockers, talking animatedly with a group of students. Finn waved him over, and Tyler made his way through the crowd, his heart pounding in his chest. "Tyler. There you are. I was starting to wonder if you'd made up your mind," Finn said, clapping him on the back. Tyler smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I've made up my mind. I'm going through with it. But on my terms." Finn's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You're in. That's great, man. I knew you would be. This is our chance to make it big." Tyler nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He wasn't just going to take the incubator opportunity at face value. He was going to make it his own. He was going to use the resources, the connections, and the power of the school to push his own vision forward, not the one the board had in mind. Later that day, Tyler found himself back in Principal Carlton's office. The air was thick with anticipation as Carlton sat behind his desk, looking at Tyler with a mixture of expectation and approval. "I'm glad you've made your decision, Tyler," Carlton said, his voice smooth. "You're going to do great things with this opportunity. The school has big plans for you." Tyler sat down across from him, keeping his posture straight and his expression neutral. "I'm ready to begin. But I need to know one thing first: what exactly do you expect from me?" Carlton's smile never faltered. "We're giving you access to the incubator's resources, Tyler. We're giving you the tools to build something incredible. All we ask in return is that you push boundaries. Challenge the status quo. We want to see results. We want to see you succeed." Tyler's mind raced as he processed Carlton's words. It sounded too good to be true. And what if I have a different vision? What if my project doesn't align with everything you expect? Carlton leaned back in his chair, his hands folding neatly in front of him. We trust that you'll understand the importance of teamwork, Tyler. This is an opportunity to showcase your talents, but it's also about contributing to something bigger than yourself. The incubator is about progress, about shaping the future. We just need you to keep that in mind. Tyler nodded, pretending to accept the idea of teamwork as a given. But inside, he was already planning. He wasn't going to be anyone's puppet. He was going to use this opportunity to create something real, something that was his, not theirs. As the meeting came to a close, Carlton handed Tyler a packet of papers. These are the preliminary details for the incubator. You'll need to go over them carefully. We'll be meeting again next week to discuss your first steps. Tyler took the packet, though he barely glanced at it. His mind was already set on what came next. The following days were a blur. Tyler spent hours in the school's tech lab, brainstorming, sketching out plans, and formulating ideas. But no matter how much time he put into it, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. Every corner of the incubator project felt like it was being closely monitored. He could feel the eyes of the board on him, even though they were invisible, lurking just beyond his reach. He knew he had to be careful. It wasn't just about getting ahead in the project. It was about getting ahead of the project. Tyler needed leverage, something the board couldn't control. As the first meeting of the incubator program approached, Tyler's plan started to take shape. He was going to play the system, but he would do it on his terms. He wasn't going to be the figurehead the board wanted. He was going to take the tools they gave him and use them to build something that was truly his own. And in the back of his mind, a new thought began to form: if he could do this, if he could succeed against all odds, then maybe he could break free from the system entirely. The day of the incubator meeting had arrived, and Tyler felt the tension in the air as if it were a physical presence, pressing down on him with every step he took. He entered the conference room with a sense of resolve, his hands steady despite the storm of thoughts raging in his mind. This was it. The moment when everything he had worked for would either fall into place, or shatter. The room was buzzing with anticipation. The board members, a mix of seasoned professionals and local business moguls, sat at the long, polished table, their eyes fixed on him as he walked in. They were all expecting him to present something brilliant, something that would impress them, something that would confirm he was the future they had been grooming. But Tyler wasn't going to give them what they wanted. He wasn't going to play by their rules. At the head of the table sat Principal Carlton, his usual calm and authoritative demeanor in place. He gestured for Tyler to sit, and as Tyler lowered himself into the chair, he felt the weight of their gazes all around him. "Tyler, we've been looking forward to seeing what you've been working on," Carlton said smoothly, his voice betraying no hint of concern. "I trust you've got something extraordinary prepared." Tyler met his gaze, his mind racing as he considered the next move. This is your moment, he thought. Make it count. He opened the folder he had brought with him, but instead of presenting the project in the typical way, he slid a single sheet of paper across the table to Carlton. The room fell into an eerie silence as the paper made its way across the table, and Carlton picked it up, scanning the contents quickly. Tyler watched his face closely, searching for any hint of surprise or confusion, but Carlton's expression remained unreadable. "Is this your proposal, Tyler?" Carlton asked, raising an eyebrow. Tyler nodded. "It's not a proposal. It's a plan. A new plan. One that's different from what you're expecting." The board members shifted in their seats, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Tyler could see that they weren't sure what to make of him. The last thing they expected was for him to challenge them so boldly. "This is a proposal for an independent project," Tyler continued, leaning forward slightly. "Instead of following the incubator's original vision, I want to create something that disrupts the current systems you've put in place. I want to develop a project that pushes boundaries, real boundaries. One that can't be easily controlled, one that can't be boxed into a neat little category. I'm going to create a product that's going to challenge everything this incubator stands for. The room went silent as Tyler finished speaking. He could almost hear the collective breath the board members were holding, unsure of how to react. Carlton's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked over the proposal again, but his face remained calm, almost too calm. You want to break the system that has been carefully constructed to ensure success. Carlton's voice was cool, measured, but there was an edge to it now. Do you really think you're ready for that, Tyler? Do you think you can succeed without the structure we've built for you? Tyler didn't flinch. I don't need your structure. What I need is the freedom to create. And if you can't give me that, then I'll take it for myself. I'm not here to be a cog in your machine. I'm here to build something new. The silence in the room grew thick, and Tyler could feel the tension rise as the board members exchanged looks. Some of them were clearly taken aback, while others were trying to gauge whether he was serious or simply naive. Carlton's eyes never left Tyler's face, his lips pressed together in a tight line. You're making a very bold statement, Tyler, Carlton said finally, his tone shifting, just a hint of a challenge in it now. But we both know that in order to succeed, you'll need more than just a vision. You'll need resources. You'll need backing. And you'll need to be part of a system that supports your goals. Tyler nodded, his voice unwavering. I already have the resources I need. I've got the right people, the right connections. And if you're not willing to support me, then I'll find another way. I'm done waiting for permission. There was a long pause as Carlton and the rest of the board digested his words. Tyler could feel the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on him. It was clear they hadn't expected this. They had assumed he would fall in line, that he would be grateful for the opportunity they had offered him. But Tyler had already made his decision. He wasn't going to play by their rules anymore. Finally, Carlton leaned back in his chair, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Well, Tyler, you've certainly surprised us. But I think you're underestimating just how much we have invested in this project, and in you. You can try to go off on your own, but I'll warn you now, it's not going to be easy. You'll have to fight for every step you take. And if you fail, it won't be just your future that's on the line. Tyler held his ground, his eyes unwavering. I'm ready to fight. Carlton's smile faltered for a moment, but then he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing slightly. I admire your confidence. But remember this, Tyler, everyone has a price. Eventually, you'll realize that there's no such thing as independence in a world built on connections. You'll come crawling back. They all do. Tyler's heart raced, but he didn't show it. Maybe. But not today. As Tyler left the meeting, a sense of satisfaction filled him, though it was laced with an undeniable tension. The battle was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The board hadn't expected him to challenge them, and they hadn't expected him to walk away from their offer. But now, Tyler knew there was no turning back. He had chosen a path of uncertainty, a path that would test his every limit. But for the first time in a long while, he felt free. The next few days were a blur of activity. Tyler threw himself into his project, meeting with friends and mentors, sketching out ideas, and gathering the resources he would need. He knew he had to move quickly before the board had a chance to retaliate, but there was also a feeling of exhilaration that came with working on something that was completely his own. It wasn't long before Tyler realized that the board's words about the price of independence weren't just threats, they were warnings. He was about to face the kind of challenges that no one in his position had ever dared to take on before. The stakes were higher than ever. But Tyler wasn't afraid. He was determined to build something that would change everything, and he was ready to fight for it. Tyler had barely settled into his new rhythm when the first wave of retaliation hit. It came like a storm, sudden, violent, and unrelenting. He was starting to feel the weight of the decision he had made, but he had no idea just how much it would cost him. The board wasn't going to let him walk away unscathed. In fact, they had already begun to tighten the noose. It started small, almost imperceptible at first. His emails went unanswered, or worse, buried beneath dozens of other requests. Faculty members, who had once been supportive, now treated him with a distant politeness, no longer offering the casual advice or encouragement they once had. Even his classmates, those who had admired his boldness, began to look at him with a mixture of awe and fear. By the end of the week, the signs were undeniable. Tyler was being isolated. It was a Wednesday afternoon when the real blow came. Tyler had just finished a meeting with Harper in the school's library, going over his plan to scale up his incubator project. The ideas were coming together, and they were finally gaining traction. But as they packed up, Tyler's phone buzzed with a new message. He glanced at it, only to find a notification from the administration. The email was from Principal Carlton. Subject: Immediate suspension of independent project. The message was brief and to the point, outlining the official stance of the school and the board. The incubator project was to be put on hold indefinitely, effective immediately. Tyler's access to resources would be revoked, and his name would be removed from the list of active participants. Tyler stared at the screen, his heart pounding. It was a clear retaliation. The board was trying to crush him before he could get any further. But this was more than just a blow to his project, it was a personal attack. He looked at Harper, who was reading over his shoulder. Her face paled as she read the email too. "This is bad," she said quietly, her voice filled with concern. "They're trying to shut you down." Tyler clenched his fists. "No. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Tyler was in constant motion, calling in favors from people he had networked with over the years, trying to figure out how to fight back. His initial shock quickly turned to anger. He couldn't believe the lengths the board would go to in order to keep him under control. The walls of the school, which had once felt like a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. The familiar halls and classrooms that had nurtured his growth now felt stifling. Everywhere he went, he felt the eyes of the administration on him, watching his every move, waiting for him to slip up. But Tyler wasn't about to back down. That evening, he sat in his room, staring at his computer screen. The news about his suspension had spread quickly, and the message boards were already buzzing with speculation. Some students supported him, while others whispered about the trouble he was in. Tyler knew he had to act fast. The board wasn't going to give him time to regroup. They had already moved against him, and they weren't going to stop until they had broken him. But Tyler wasn't going to let that happen. If he couldn't fight them head-on, he would find another way. His phone buzzed again, this time, it was a call from Finn. "Tyler," Finn said, his voice tense. "I heard about the suspension. You're not just gonna let them do this to you, are you?" Tyler stood up, pacing across the room as he spoke. "I'm not letting them get away with this. They think they can just shut me down. No way. You've got to be careful, man. The board's not messing around. They'll crush you if they think you're a threat," Finn warned, his voice laced with genuine concern. "I know," Tyler replied. "But I'm not backing down. I've worked too hard for this. They want me to fail. I'm going to show them what happens when you push someone to their breaking point." The next morning, Tyler arrived at school early, his mind already spinning with ideas. He couldn't afford to wait any longer. The board had made their move, but now it was his turn to respond. He couldn't let them think he was a mere obstacle to be eliminated. He made his way to the tech lab, where he had spent countless hours developing his project. The door creaked open as he entered, and the familiar hum of computers and machines filled the air. But today, everything felt different. The lab no longer felt like a place of creation, it felt like a battleground. He approached the main desk, where the lab assistant, Ms. Miller, sat typing away. She looked up at him and immediately frowned. "Tyler, you're not supposed to be in here. You've been suspended, haven't you?" "I don't care about that," Tyler said, his voice cold. "I need access to the resources in here. I'm not letting them stop me. Ms. Miller hesitated, clearly torn. Tyler, you know I can't just give you access like that. You have to follow the rules. The rules? Tyler interrupted, his frustration bubbling to the surface. The rules are what they use to control me. I'm done following their rules. I'm taking back control. Ms. Miller looked at him for a moment, her gaze flickering with uncertainty. Finally, she sighed and stood up, walking to a nearby cabinet. I can't stop you, Tyler. But you're going to have to be careful. If you go through with this, you're on your own. Tyler nodded, his resolve hardening. I know. But I have to do this. Tyler spent the next few hours in the lab, working frantically to get everything he needed. The pieces of his project had been scattered, but now, he was determined to pull them all together. The incubator project had been his vision, his dream, and he wasn't going to let the board take it from him. Not without a fight. As the day wore on, the weight of his isolation grew heavier. The school had become a battleground, and every step he took felt like a confrontation. The administration was closing in, trying to keep him contained. But Tyler could feel the fire within him growing brighter, more intense. That evening, as he left the lab, Tyler received another message, this one from Harper. They're coming for you, she warned. The board's not done yet. They've already called for a meeting with your parents. Tyler's stomach tightened. The board wasn't just trying to destroy his project, they were coming after his family now. He knew he had no time to waste. The storm was about to hit its peak, and if he didn't act fast, everything he had worked for could be lost. The morning after the message from Harper, Tyler knew he couldn't hide from the storm any longer. The message had been clear, the board wasn't going to stop at the project. They were taking things to a much darker, personal level. The news that they had called a meeting with his parents sent a jolt of fear through him. His parents had always supported him. But they had also believed in the system, in the safety net the school provided, and Tyler knew that if the board painted him as a troublemaker or a threat to the institution, they could easily sway his parents to their side. He was no longer just fighting for his future, he was fighting to keep his family intact. That afternoon, Tyler found himself standing in front of his house, feeling the weight of the decision that had brought him here. His parents' car was in the driveway, and he could see the flickering lights from the kitchen window. Inside, he could hear their voices, low and steady, but the tension was thick in the air. As he stepped inside, his mother looked up first. Claire, his mom, was sitting at the kitchen table, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her coffee mug. Tyler could tell she had been waiting for him. The second their eyes met, she stood, her face already filled with concern. Tyler, she said softly, her voice laced with worry. We need to talk. Tyler knew what this was about. The board's meeting with his parents wasn't a coincidence. They had spun their narrative, painted him as someone who had turned against the system. He could only imagine how they'd framed him, the rebellious student, the one who couldn't be controlled. But he wasn't that person. Not anymore. Not if he could help it. Mom, I know what they told you, Tyler said, his voice firm, but the weight of the conversation gnawed at him. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be a problem, but I can't just sit back and let them tell me what to do anymore. His father, John, stepped into the room, his face lined with the stress of the situation. Tyler, we've been talking about this, he said, his tone calm but insistent. The board is offering you a chance to make things right. They want you to come back and finish your project under their guidance. You need to understand that they're trying to help you, son. Tyler shook his head, his heart pounding. Help me? They're trying to control me. They're trying to make me fall in line. I don't want their help. I want to build something on my own. Claire stepped forward, her expression soft but worried. Tyler, we understand you're upset, but you can't just turn your back on everything you've worked for. You've come so far. The incubator, the school, they've invested a lot in you. You're smart, and they believe in you. They believe in me. Tyler's voice cracked, the frustration surging inside him. They believe in their system. I'm just a cog in the machine, Mom. They only believe in the things they can control. John stepped closer, his hand resting on Tyler's shoulder. Son, we've been in this world long enough to know that sometimes, you have to work within the system to make real change. You can't just go around tearing everything down. It's not how things work. Tyler felt a stab of pain. His father's words were a harsh reminder of what had always been expected of him, to follow the rules, to play it safe, and to never rock the boat. But Tyler couldn't do it anymore. The fight within him was too strong. I can't do it, Dad. I can't go back and pretend like nothing's wrong. The way they control everything, the projects, the people, the rules, they're suffocating. They'll never let me create anything meaningful if I keep playing by their rules. There was a long pause, and for a moment, Tyler thought his parents might not understand. He saw the conflict in their eyes, the tug-of-war between their desire to protect him and the truth he was revealing. Finally, Claire spoke, her voice quiet but resolute. We know you've always been different, Tyler. But this isn't just about you anymore. This is about your future. We don't want to see you fail. If you don't take the school's offer, if you don't come back and follow their plan, what's your backup plan? How are you going to succeed on your own? Tyler stood tall, his eyes locked onto his parents. He knew this was the moment of truth, the moment where he had to choose between the comfort of security and the uncertainty of freedom. I don't have a backup plan, he said, his voice steady. Because I'm not backing down. If I don't succeed, I'll fail on my own terms. But I will never go back to being part of a system that doesn't believe in real change. Not again. His father's expression softened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Tyler saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. John let out a slow breath, the weight of his words hanging in the air. You're sure about this? Tyler nodded. I have to be. The conversation that followed was quieter, more reflective. There were still moments of tension, of doubt. But Tyler could see that his parents were starting to understand, even if they weren't entirely comfortable with his choices. They were scared for him, but they could see the fire in his eyes, the same fire that had always driven him to pursue his dreams, even when it meant walking away from what others thought was the right path. It wasn't an easy acceptance, but it was an acceptance nonetheless. As the evening wore on, Tyler could feel the weight of the battle growing heavier. The board was relentless, and now that they had his parents on their side, albeit reluctantly, Tyler knew he was facing an uphill struggle. But one thing was certain, he wasn't about to back down. That night, as Tyler lay in bed, he thought about everything he had fought for. The project, his future, and the people he loved. His mind raced with plans, ideas, and strategies. There was no turning back now. If he was going to succeed, he had to do it on his own. His family might have been torn, but they would come around. He just needed to prove to them, and to himself, that he could make it without relying on the system that had held him back for so long. Tomorrow, Tyler was going to show everyone what he was capable of. He was done being the kid who followed orders. He was going to be the person who changed the game. The weight of Tyler's decision had settled over him like a dense fog. It was impossible to escape. Everything was on the line. He had defied the system. He had chosen a path that most would consider reckless. But Tyler had long ago stopped caring about what other people thought. This was his battle, his future. Now, he had to see it through. The following morning, Tyler arrived at school early, the usual hum of the building feeling strangely ominous. He could sense the eyes on him before he even walked through the door. Students and teachers alike were talking in hushed tones, but Tyler's resolve was unshaken. He had made up his mind. There was no turning back. As he walked past the administration office, Tyler spotted Principal Carlton through the glass windows, his back turned as he spoke to a few other staff members. Tyler's heart thudded in his chest, but he didn't flinch. The meeting with his parents the night before had been a turning point. It was painful, uncomfortable, but it had made one thing clear: this fight wasn't just about a project or a school, it was about his right to control his own future. Tyler's phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him out of his thoughts. It was a message from Harper. "Harper, are you ready for today? It's going to get real ugly. But I believe in you." Tyler smiled despite himself. Harper had always been there, a steady presence when everything else seemed uncertain. She believed in him, even when it felt like the world was set against him. "Tyler, let's do this." The first bell rang, signaling the start of the day. Tyler walked into the main hallway, his step steady, his mind focused. It was time to face the board. Time to show them that he wasn't just some kid they could intimidate into submission. As he made his way toward the administration offices, the door to the principal's office opened. Mr. Carlton stepped out, his face grim. When he saw Tyler, his expression darkened, but he didn't say anything. Tyler locked eyes with him, refusing to look away. He wasn't afraid. The door to the boardroom was slightly ajar. Tyler pushed it open with a quiet determination. Inside, the board members sat around a large table, their faces stern. Dr. Foster, the head of the board, was at the head of the table. He looked up as Tyler entered, his gaze cold and calculating. "Tyler, come in," Dr. Foster said, his voice smooth but tinged with authority. "I'm glad you could join us. Please, take a seat." Tyler didn't sit. He stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, his heart racing but his expression unwavering. "I know what you're trying to do," he said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "But I'm not going to let you control me. You can't shut me down." Dr. Foster didn't flinch, but the others at the table shifted uncomfortably. Tyler could see the tension in their faces, the way they exchanged looks, unsure of how to proceed. But he wasn't backing down. "Not now. Tyler," Dr. Foster said, his tone soft but condescending, "you've made your point. But you have to understand that this isn't just about you. It's about the institution, the integrity of this school, and your future. The path you've chosen will only lead to chaos." "Chaos?" Tyler repeated. "You mean freedom. You mean innovation. Because if you can't see that, then I don't want to be part of your system anymore." There was a pause, the weight of Tyler's words hanging heavy in the air. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Then, Dr. Foster leaned forward, clasping his hands in front of him. "You think you're the first student to challenge the system?" he asked, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. "You think we're going to let you disrupt everything we've worked so hard to build? You've made your choice, Tyler. But understand this, there are consequences for defying the system." "I'm already living the consequences," Tyler shot back. "But I won't be intimidated by you anymore. You're scared of change, but I'm not. I won't apologize for that." Dr. Foster's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Tyler thought he might snap. But then, the board members shifted, their gazes softening. Tyler could see the cracks forming in the walls they had built around themselves. They were not invincible. The room's tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. For what felt like an eternity, no one spoke. Then, from the back of the room, a voice broke the silence. "It's time we listened to him." Tyler turned. It was Ms. Thompson, one of the faculty members who had always supported him, despite the pressure from the administration. She had been watching the entire exchange, her gaze now steady. "This is the future we're supposed to be preparing these kids for," she continued. "Not a world of rules and restrictions, but one where they have the freedom to think, to create. Tyler's vision isn't a threat, it's an opportunity." Tyler's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected this, but it gave him the spark of hope he so desperately needed. Dr. Foster glanced around the room, his gaze shifting between the board members. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Some of the others were nodding in agreement, but Dr. Foster wasn't ready to concede just yet. "This is not how we do things here," he said, his voice low. "We have a system, and you are a part of that system. You either comply, or you face the consequences." Tyler took a deep breath, the words weighing on his chest. But he was resolute. "I've already faced the consequences," he said quietly. "And I'll keep facing them. But I'm not backing down. Not now. Not ever." Just as the room seemed to be at an impasse, the door to the boardroom flew open with a loud bang. Tyler spun around, his breath caught in his throat. Standing in the doorway, flanked by two stern-faced security guards, was none other than Tyler's grandfather, Raymond Sullivan, the very man who had been his inspiration from the start. Raymond stepped forward, his voice booming across the room. "I'm not going to let you run over my grandson." The board members froze. Tyler's heart raced, but this time, it wasn't from fear. It was from relief. His grandfather had always been a force of nature, and now, it was clear, he was here to back Tyler up. Raymond's gaze locked onto Dr. Foster's. "You think you can control everything, huh? You've forgotten who built the foundation of this place. It wasn't you, it was the dreamers, the creators, the ones who dared to challenge the system. That's what made this institution what it is today. And if you think you're going to squash that with your rules, you're wrong." Dr. Foster opened his mouth, but no words came out. He couldn't argue with Raymond. Not with that kind of conviction. In that moment, Tyler knew everything was about to change. His grandfather's arrival had tipped the scales. The board was no longer the unshakable monolith it had once seemed. They were human, and they were vulnerable. And Tyler? He was no longer just a student fighting for a dream. He was a symbol, a beacon of hope for everyone who had ever been told that they didn't fit into the mold. As the board members began to murmur among themselves, Raymond's words hung in the air, unchallenged. And Tyler? Tyler felt something stir within him, a sense of victory, but also a sense of responsibility. The battle wasn't over yet. But today, they had won. Together. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?